Hi, welcome to SFLiberalBuzz. Thanks for tuning in. This is our voter education series for the primary election, which is in June. And the issue today will be Yes on Prop B, which unfortunately wasn't endorsed by Democrats. But this is a liberal show, and we've got a lot of non-liberal Democrats in the DCCC. But it went by one vote with, they lost by one vote. So that was a very sad night. And now, if we want to talk about Yes on B, because San Francisco has done this before, with the height limits. We're talking about the Fontana Towers. It's about the voters deciding whether to preserve existing building height limits from Fisherman's Wharf to Bayview Hunters Point, established in the 90s by San Francisco voters who opposed rampant construction that would have created a wall along the northern waterfront. And it couldn't be increased unless approved by the voters, but was it the Board of Supervisors?
So when Prop H passed, it required that they come up with a comprehensive waterfront plan. And the Port and the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission came up. It took 6 years, and they came up with the waterfront plan, which actually set the existing height limits, which range from 40 feet. In one case, a couple cases, 84, and then now with one exemption, there's a 105-foot exemption across from Piers 3032. But basically, in 96, 97 is when the current waterfront plan was voted on and allowed and established the current height limit.
So basically, in layman's terms, the Board of Supervisors is allowed to have certain parts of the board of our San Francisco boardwalk to have certain height limits, instead of the whole entire boardwalk.
Well, what's happened is that since 96. The Port and the Planning Commission, and then ultimately the Board of Supervisors will allow for an exemption. And so that's happened a couple times, and so the Watermark condominiums is an example of that, where they were allowed to go to 105 feet. So, so Prop B is actually spun out of the defeat of 8 Washington last November, where developers were trying to exceed height limits. They were able to get the Board of Supervisors to give an exemption to go to 13 stories. The voters had a revolt, and we defeated the 8 Washington project by a 2-to-1 margin. And so then we put forth Measure B for this June that basically says that if they're going to continue to do that, the Port Commission, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Supervisors are going to allow developments on port property, which is owned by us, the people of San Francisco. They're going to continue to do that, and then give an exemption to go over the height limit. We want the voters to then have final say on whether or not that project should be allowed.
So compared to the last Proposition B, now this one actually has some teeth and merit into it?
Yes, it does. In fact, I think because of Prop B, we've seen the 3 major developments that are being proposed at the moment along port-owned property have all backed off or are planning on redoing their plan to make it more friendly to the community.
Like the Warriors Stadium?
Well, for example, the Warriors, we're going to go to Piers 3032, and because of reasons, including the fact that they were going to have to try to get the voters to approve a 175-foot tower across the street from the arena. Not only was the arena going to be 3 times the current height limit, but they were proposing condominiums across the street to help pay for the arena, which a lot of voters didn't know about.
Can you zoom in on that picture so everybody can see that a lot clearer? This right here is basically one of the examples. When was the building built, Denise?
In the 60s?
The 1960s?
So yeah, so that was one of the ones that kind of snuck through, and the voters after that weren't happy with that. And so we've seen the voters of San Francisco take things into their own hands. Every once a decade at least, it seems like, when development kind of gets out of control, and then the voters come in and put some reasoning into it.
Because the people they put in office won't.
Well, I mean, tends to seem to what happens. Just to go back a little bit with the Port, the Port is a 5-member appointed body by the mayor, and they are doing what the mayor's office, in some cases, would like. We know that the mayor there's not a development that the mayor doesn't endorse, and so that's kind of where we're at, and that's partly why we put Measure B on the ballot.
I'm actually personally curious about how many of these appointees are visited by lobbyists.
Well, I mean, we can look that up. There's, there is that happening. But back to Prop B, it basically says that, and it's very simple, that after the process is done, and if the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission and the Port Commission wants to allow a development to happen along port-owned property that would exceed the current height limits, they have to get voter approval. And so the Warriors have found a better location, potentially, and moved off the piers. The Giants, we've been told, are going to redo their existing plan that they're thinking about, because on parking lot A, which is across near where basically the parking lot for the baseball games, they had a plan to put a 37-story tower on that parking lot. So that's 370 feet, which is about 3 times the size of the ballpark. So they would have to go to the voters. And after we win on June 3rd, the Giants realized that doesn't look like a good option for them, so they're going to redo their plan. And more recently, in fact, you might be able to look it up, that Pier 70 folks have actually filed an initiative for November, stating that they're going to ask voters for a height increase from 40 feet to 90 feet, but they're also going to include 30% of on-site affordable housing. So they're proposing 1,000 units, and 300 of those are going to be affordable.
I'm sorry, I believe I have
Affordable for people who make 75 grand or.
I think I'm having a flashback
Yes.
here. This sounds like something Mayor Art Agnews was trying to promote when he was mayor.
Yes, well, so affordable housing there's a definition of affordable housing, but what most developers have been doing is if you build more than 10 units, you either have to build 20% or 12% on site, have to be affordable, or they pay a 20% fee that goes into the mayor's office of affordable housing, and then that ends up being built somewhere else. At least the Pier 70 folks, at least in their initiative that they're going to ask voters to approve, are saying that they're going to build 30% on site. So we know that the Prop B is winning, because if we didn't have this on the ballot, the Pier 70 folks wouldn't be doing this.
The political climate has changed before the election even
The
happened.
political climate has changed, but that doesn't mean we've won. We will only win after June 3rd, and everyone that cares about protecting the waterfront, make sure they vote.
GOTV.
So if
Did
you're
you hear that?
so
Vote.
if you're a vote by mail person, it should be in the mail. You should have already received it. You can early voting. You can go into City Hall today and actually vote.
If you don't know where your polling place is, City Hall is the general polling place.
They say that in having a height limit would curtail building any housing. There would be less housing built. It says the rebuttal to proponents' argument in favor of Proposition B. They're saying the only open space that will be protected is parking lots.
Right.
And if Prop B passes, only people who will benefit are those who put it on the ballot, the waterfront condo owners. I've heard that argument before. And these are their arguments.
Right. I mean, basically their arguments is that the sky's going to fall and that nothing is going to happen, and
no
and
jobs.
there's going to be no jobs, and all that's going to happen is we're going to keep parking lots.
Minor prophecy for 2.0.
But the the fact of the matter is that the Pier 70 project that literally just filed the initiative yesterday proves that all their arguments are completely false, because Pier 70 is actually going to move forward. They're going to ask the voters for permission to increase height limits, but because of Prop B, they're going to actually make it a better project. And that's the whole point of Proposition B, is that we know that if voters have a say, that developers are going to have to lobby the voters, and they're going to have to put things that the voters want. And the 30% of on-site affordable housing, they would not have done that without Proposition B.
Well, because for 8 Washington, they were just going to put money into a fund.
Right, they were going to put money into a fund that was going to go to the mayor's office of housing, that then would be built somewhere else some other time.
And the voters weren't fooled by that.
The voters weren't fooled by that, but mainly they weren't fooled because those were going to be specifically $5 and $10 million condominiums. So, and that kind of goes back to the point of our opposition right now. It's mainly the realtors and the people that make money selling those luxury condominiums.
Who can afford $5 million condominiums now in San Francisco?
Well, they're not people I know.
It's probably overseas investors just buying blocks and
So-
leaving them empty.
So, but our opposition is mainly the groups that will profit from those multi-million-dollar condominiums. So,
Like private investors or public firms?
but it's mostly the real estate industry and the
The
realtors.
luxury condo developers?
Well, I mean, the Alliance for Sustainable Jobs in the Economy is a group that supposedly cares about housing in San Francisco. So they're opposed to this, but after what we're seeing and some of the recent developments, we'd like to hear from our opposition what's wrong with the Pier 70 going to the ballot.
You just said they seem to oppose housing, but what type of housing? Is it low-income housing? Is it condominium housing, conversion housing?
I mean, they want all kinds of housing, but if you actually go to the planning department, there's a fact sheet that basically states that from 2007 to 2014, the amount of housing that is needed to keep up with the pace, they have 3 categories, and what's been needed for those 7 years, we have built 200% more of the market-based housing in San Francisco, but the affordable housing and medium income housing, those are less than half. So we need housing in San Francisco, but we need to build the right housing. We need to build affordable housing, and we need to build housing that teachers and firefighters and regular folks that help keep San Francisco to afford.
So basically, if you work in San Francisco in the investment community, you should be able to live in the city.
Well, yes, we believe so. But building luxury condominiums on the waterfront is not going to solve the problem. But we once again, going back to why Prop D matters, is that it gives voters final say, and we see that it's already working, but we need to kind of finish the deal and make sure people vote.
I've actually done some research, and I cannot find any environmental assessments done on any proposed properties for the waterfront, because the waterfront is very vulnerable to earthquakes right now in San Francisco.
Well, I mean, I know that projects, they do go through environmental review, and so, I mean, ultimately, that's part of the process. We are just saying that after that review and after that process, if they're gonna increase the current height limits, they have to ask voters for approval. And we have a broad coalition, the Sierra Club, the Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods, several of the Democratic leaders in our community, as well as all the affordable housing groups. Any of the tenant rights or affordable housing groups that actually work on affordable housing support the Yes On B campaign.
Like Ted Gullick Center?
Yeah, Ted's group, the
Sierra Club.
tennis union.
When I would say
Coalition for San Francisco.
Yeah.
Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods.
Yeah, neighborhoods, and they represent many.
Affordable Housing Alliance.
The Affordable Housing Alliance,
And
yes.
then the people who are against it are Tim Cullen, Corrine Woods, and Mike Terrio.
Yeah, and they have their specific reasons, but I think that once the news of what's going on at Pier 70 comes out, which, like I said, they literally just filed their initiative for November in the last couple of days, and once the news gets out on what they're doing, almost all of their arguments prove that all their arguments are completely false.
Is there going to be a debate about it somewhere at some point?
Well, I mean, we've been debating, the folks that you just mentioned, we've been debating at every neighborhood association and every Democratic club and every group for the last month and a half. But now that, I mean, literally election is almost a little bit over 2 weeks away. We have almost all the groups that made their decision. We probably have over 90% of every group that could possibly do an endorsement for this ballot measure. We probably have about 90% of them have supported the Yes On B.
So you're not really worried about losing?
Well, no, I don't want to say that. We feel confident, but the realtors and the other pro-development groups have put money in. They have put out the misleading mail piece, so we do need help.
I haven't gotten any yet.
Well, maybe they haven't targeted you.
More so than 8, probably not.
I have not received my mailers yet
No?
from any no on B campaign.
Well, I mean, it could be coming. We're not going to take anything for granted. If people are interested in helping out and getting involved, our headquarters is at 15 Columbus Avenue, down in Financial, where the Financial District meets Chinatown, meets North Beach.
Do you have a website?
Our website is the nowallonthewaterfront.com.
Like them on Facebook?
And like us on Facebook, No Wall on the Waterfront.
Can people follow you on Twitter?
We don't tweet. But our campaign phone number is 410-9588. We are going to have a voter mobilization effort this Saturday at 10 a.m. if people want to come join us to hand out material, because we feel confident, but we need voters to vote. Because it's a June election, people might forget.
Farmers market's a good place.
Yes, we spend we spend time at farmers markets. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, now, one proposal would put 380-foot towers on land currently zoned as public open space. Can we talk about that?
Sure. That was the Giants own parking lot A, and as part of their deal, they were given the right to future use to build on that site. So their plan right now is to build a 5-acre park and some open space and some retail. But in order to pay for that, in order to make as much money as they possibly can, they're going to build 37-story supposedly apartment building. That could change, and it could become luxury condominiums if they want. There's nothing in the plan now that states that they have to build a certain type of unit. So that's a proposal.
That's disturbing that we have to build all this housing just to get something built for the community.
Many people are wide-eyed open when they hear the words open space. How much
Right.
open space is actually going to be for public space?
Well, I mean, the plan does show that there could be some, but the fact is that the current plan shows there's going to be a 37-story tower, at least one, potentially a couple others on that site. And once again, 370 feet is 3 times the height of the ballpark, and that's going to be right there. So that parking lot is actually a seawall lot, so it's right near Piers 40, I believe, right there.
And how high is the Bay Bridge? I'm sorry, the Willie L. Brown Jr. Bridge?
I'm not sure. That's much taller than that. But just in terms of like the reference for that area, the ballpark is roughly 140 feet, and these towers would be 370. But because of Proposition B, and the Giants have now stated that they are not openly opposed to it, so they're going to go back to the drawing boards, and they will probably reduce that, and then if they want the voters to approve it, we would imagine that they're going to make it a better project, and that's the whole point of Proposition B, is that if the developers need voter approval, they will ask the voters for approval of a better project.
Thank you.
Project by project.
Project by project.
So each project that gets proposed, the voters have a right to say, hey, we as a community do not want this, or we as a community want this and welcome this project.
Right. If it's going to exceed the current height limits. And that's the whole beauty of Proposition B. It doesn't say that it's against that proposal. It just says that proposal can go to the voters, and then we can, if you like it, you can vote yes, and if you don't like it, you can vote no. But we know that ultimately we'll get a better project if the voters have a say.
Will this be a neighborhood vote or a citywide vote?
It'll be citywide. So it'll be exactly like the 8 Washington vote, and much like Proposition B is citywide.
So David Campos was in favor of the...
Yes, David Campos is the only supervisor in that race, of the Assembly District race that supports it. But we also have Supervisor Jane Kim, we have Supervisor Malia Cohen, Supervisor Avalos, and Supervisor Marr as well. Have all
you can count
publicly
them.
stated.
What about any currently state representatives?
Well, we have State Senator Mark Leno and State Assembly Member Tom Amiano as well. So we have a large number of publicly elected officials, and we might add that there are no publicly elected officials who have actually come out and said that they endorsed the no campaign.
And these are all local Bay Area
Political
politicians.
suicide.
Yes, these are basically all our representatives.
With 3/4 of the vote, that's probably political suicide for them to come out against it. But they, at the vote, I was just so struck by how the DCCC could actually go against it. So
Well,
we've got
the
Democrats
DCCC is the Democratic Party of San Francisco. They did vote by one vote. It was a 13 to 12 vote to support the no. But I think that based on the large coalition that we have, I can read all of them, but we have the Bernal Heights Democratic Club, we have the Central City Democratic Club, District 3 Democratic Club, District 11, Harvey Milk, the Irish American Club, the Latino Democratic Club, the Trail Hill Democratic Club,
cool.
Richmond, South Beach, the Women's Political Committee, all support the Yes on B. So I think it's just an anomaly that the DCCC actually voted by one vote to support the no campaign.
What about the Yes on Washington? I forgot how they voted for that. Yes on
The
Washington.
DCCC did support us in the fall for the no on B and no on C campaign.
Oh, yeah. I didn't go to that meeting, but yeah, that's good.
Well, our time is almost up this evening.
Oh, is it?
Yes,
Okay,
it is.
Wow, it does go by pretty fast.
Yes, it does.
It does. I've got, so if you've got your voter pamphlet in the mail, you can go to the City Hall basement, like Eli said. I've got mine. Here's mine. So
I received mine in the mail, mine's at home, so.
okay, that's great. And we've also got let's get to the Twitter. Now, this is the Fontana Towers, which inspired a lot of legislation, didn't it? And we're going to put this show up. Now, medical marijuana lawsuits over Canada's new rules continue to pile up, and that's because people aren't able to grow in Canada anymore. And whatever excess they have over an ounce, they have to make into kitty litter. So prevention of Alzheimer's could hinge on marijuana science. 8 lies we have to stop telling about marijuana. I don't like to call it marijuana, I like to call it cannabis, but I'm just quoting the articles.
Because marijuana is technically a slang word.
Yes, it is. San Francisco nonprofits Hopeful City Fund will stave off evictions, and I could probably have Eli talk a bit about that in a future show. We've got 1 minute left. Molecular biologist explains how THC completely kills cancer cells. Billionaire trying to buy 17th Assembly District race. These are articles I'm recommending off my Twitter, and you can follow us at Denise Dorey. It's got 45 seconds. Hot study planned at San Francisco government with government-supplied cannabis to see if it reduces sickle cell disease. And now Eli has an announcement.
On Friday, May 23rd, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. at St. Anthony's Dining Hall, 150 Golden Gate Avenue. The Coalition on Homelessness is basically hosting an event called the Panel Discussion and Community Speak Out in the State of Homelessness in San Francisco. Also, don't forget to buy your local street sheet, and Bach needs your support.
Yes, they just had a hearing the other day.
Yes.
And the next show coming up is going to be Let's Talk Sports.
We want to thank Tim
Coming up in
Hester.
7 minutes.
I'll make sure we thank Tim Hester here.
And we want to thank you very
Thank you.
much for coming on the
Yes,
show.
make
Tim
sure you
Hester.
vote. Please vote. Vote
Yes,
yes
vote.
on B. Thank you.